Chapter 12. Flesh and Fire. It burns, but it won't stop. The fire didn't kill it, it changed it. The thing that limped through Bent Horn now wasn't the same slick shadow crawler they fought in the tunnels. This one didn't bother hiding. It didn't stalk or whisper or mimic. It just came. Bold, pissed, blistered. It moved through the town like it was looking for revenge. Smoke watched from the junkyard tower as it crawled down Main Street under the full moon. One leg gone, jaw barely hanging, and half its ribs exposed like jagged piano keys. But that acid blood still dripped. That wet gurgle still filled the air. And even with a whole fucking side blown off, the bitch moved faster than it should have. "Tell me that ain't the same one," Kadal muttered, leaning heavy on the railing next to him, arm still wrapped in blood-soaked cloth. Smoke didn't blink. "It is." "Then how?" "I don't know. But it ain't dying the regular way." Below them, Redbone's homemade rig, the one they were saving for this very moment, sat armed and waiting, rebar cage laced with bear traps, propane tanks, and a pressure trigger made out of an old lawnmower clutch. All it needed was the final spark. Kadal reached into her coat, pulled out the spark. A single red road flare. "Soon as it steps in the middle," she said, "you light this and toss it. Whole thing goes up like hell's barbecue." Smoke nodded once. They descended. They hid behind busted cars as the creature came closer. The ground shook with every four-legged drag step it took. Its breath sounded like a clogged drain. Steam hissed off its body with every movement. It left trails of burnt mud behind it. Grass turned black just from contact. Kadal clutched her pipe. Smoke held the gut gun tight against his chest. Closer now. Just a few more feet. "Wait for it," Smoke whispered. The creature tilted its head, if you could call that mangled mass a head, and let out a groan. But this time, it didn't sound like anyone they knew. This time, it sounded new. It was collecting voices again, building itself back. It stepped into the trap. Click. Bare jaws snapped shut on its remaining leg. It howled. Propane tanks hissed as the pressure plate depressed. Kadal sparked the flare. Whoosh! The trap exploded in a white wall of fire. The cage collapsed inward. The tanks burst. A second explosion rocked the lot, sending shards of car hoods and chain-link fence flying across the dirt. Smoke tackled Kadal to the ground and shielded her. The whole junkyard lit up in a blaze brighter than Sunday judgment. When Smoke opened his eyes, the sky above him was orange. Ash rained down like burnt snow. Something screeched from inside the fire. He stood up, body screaming in protest. The cage was gone. So was the trap. But not the thing. It crawled out the inferno, skin melted and hanging in ribbons, inner organs spilling behind it like drag lines. But it moved. No scream, no words, just rage. It wanted to take someone with it. Smoke raised the gut gun, fired once. The slug blew off part of its spine. Still crawled, fired again, shoulder exploded, still crawled, fired third shot, clicked empty. The thing lunged. Kadal swung from the side with her pipe, landed a hit straight into its remaining eye socket. The pipe bent. The creature flinched, then backhanded her with one melted limb. She hit a car door and crumpled. "No!" Smoke roared. He grabbed a crowbar from the dirt and ran. They collided mid-charge. The creature's jaw unhinged, tried to bite. Smoke shoved the crowbar between its teeth, twisted hard, broke the hinge clean. It shrieked. He drove the crowbar down, through its throat, into the meat of its neck, until the metal hit bone. It spasmed, he twisted, it stopped. Smoke stood there, panting, arms covered in black sludge and burn blisters, heart pounding out his ears. Then the body twitched again. He didn't wait. He pulled the road flare from Kadal's vest, stabbed it straight into the fucking creature's stomach, and stepped back. It burned from the inside out. This time, it didn't scream with voices. It just howled, one long dying noise that shook the rust off every wrecked car in the yard. Then silence, then nothing. Smoke collapsed next to K-Doll. She blinked slowly. Is it? Yeah. He coughed hard. That bitch done. They both laid there a long while, watching the flames shrink down to embers. Bent Horn was quiet again, but not in the peaceful kind of way. More like after a war, or right before a worse one. Smoke couldn't sleep. Every time he shut his eyes, that thing's voice came back. Not the screaming, not the howling, but the way it spoke with the dead. How it used Tanisha's soft whisper, Junior's nervous stammer, Redbone's cussing. Even Mookie's laugh crept back through that busted jaw like some fucked up mixtape of the grave. Bent Horn was silent now. Sure, but it was the kind of silence that waited. He sat on the floor of his old trailer, shirtless, soaked in peroxide and cheap whiskey. K-Doll slept 3 feet away on a couch cushion dragged off the curb. Her arm was wrapped, her skin still bubbling under the gauze. Her pipe leaned against the wall like a wounded soldier's rifle. A shotgun rested across Smoke's knees. The TV in the corner buzzed static. All the channels dead, all the news gone. He stared at the screen like it owed him a reason. Outside, the moon ducked behind clouds, and for a second, the whole fucking town disappeared in black. Then a knock. 3 soft taps. Smoke didn't breathe. He moved slow, picked up the sawed-off, stepped over K-Doll, peeked through the peephole. Nothing. He opened the door anyway. Nothing, just wind, just quiet. But something smelled wrong, like rotten meat, melted rubber, and burnt hair. He stepped out barefoot into the gravel yard. The night was still, too still. He turned left, saw drag marks across the dirt, still fresh. Then a whisper behind him, real low. Mookie, ain't done talking. He spun. Nobody there. Just his own door wide open. And the static on the TV growing louder. He rushed back in. K-Doll was still asleep, but sweat poured off her like rain. Smoke turned the volume down. The static kept climbing. Then it stopped. A single voice came through the screen. It said, "You missed one." Smoke smashed the TV with the butt of the shotgun. Glass flew. K-Doll woke up screaming. He grabbed her shoulder. "It's okay. It's gone." She looked at him wild-eyed, clutching her side like she'd been stabbed in her dream. "I saw it," she whispered. "In my sleep. I saw where it hides." Smoke's stomach sank. "Where?" She pointed toward the bayou, then passed out. The next morning, the town smelled like thunder. Not rain, not storm, thunder. That dry, electric weight in the air that meant something was coming. Smoke wrapped K-Doll's arm tighter, loaded the truck with what was left. Road flares, the last bottle of gasoline, homemade grenades made from mason jars and nails. They rolled toward the edge of town, with weapons in their laps and rage in their bones. Bent Horn looked like it had already been claimed. Storefronts caved in, trailers empty, weed farms burnt to ash. Only place untouched? The old canning factory by the bayou. K-Doll stirred as they parked. "That's it. That's where it breathes." Smoke nodded. The place had been shut down for 10 years. Roof caved in, doors rusted, windows gone. Used to can peaches and pig meat. Now it just canned nightmares. They moved slow, step by step. Every creak of metal sounded like a scream trying to remember its name. Smoke opened the front door with the barrel of his gun. Inside, dark, cold, wet. The floor sloshed under their boots. The smell hit like a slap. Copper, bile, rot, and acid. "Don't breathe too deep," Smoke muttered. K-Doll covered her face with her shirt sleeve. They passed the old conveyor belts. Broken jars lay like bones across the floor. Then they heard it. Not a growl. Not a scream. A heartbeat. Loud. Slow. Real. Like a drum echoing through flesh. K-Doll grabbed Smoke's arm. He pointed ahead. Something pulsed behind the old boiler tank. A shape. Huge. Red. Dripping. Smoke edged closer. Then it moved. A wet shadow unfurled from the wall like a flag of meat. The creature wasn't dead. It was growing, regenerating. Twice the size, skin translucent like hot candle wax. Inside it, faces. Red Bone's twisted jaw, Tanisha's dead eyes, Junior's crooked teeth, all pressing out from the creature's belly like a fucked up womb. K-Doll dropped her pipe. Smoke pulled the pin on the first jar bomb. "Run!" he yelled. He threw it hard. Boom! The flames lit up the whole room, turning those faces into red ghosts. The thing screamed, but not in pain, in fury. It charged. They ran. Smoke tossed another jar behind them. The exit collapsed in fire and rubble. "Back way!" K-Doll shouted. They hit the loading dock. Smoke turned. The creature pushed through the inferno, skin flaming, but arms reaching. He aimed, fired, again. Click. K-Doll shoved him aside and tossed her flare. It hit the puddle of gasoline below the beast's feet. Whoosh! The factory lit like Judgment Day. They dove into the bayou, swam hard. Behind them, the roof exploded. A fireball swallowed the place whole. Smoke hit the muddy bank, coughing. K-Doll dragged herself next to him. They laid there, soaked, burned, breathing. Neither said a word. But both looked at each other with the same thought. It still ain't done. They didn't go back to town. They didn't speak for hours. Smoke built a fire behind the junkyard, right near the rusted-out Impala frame, and sat there shirtless with dried blood on his neck and duct tape around one wrist. His boots were soaked, his left ear still ringing, and the taste of gasoline sat thick in the back of his throat. K-Doll huddled under two ripped blankets, her left arm barely usable, eyes hollow but locked on the flames. Every few seconds she'd flinch, like she saw the thing moving in the shadows again, but it never came. Not yet. Bent Horn wasn't even a ghost town now. It was just a memory waiting to be erased. "You think it's dead?" she finally asked, voice cracked like old vinyl. Smoke stared into the fire, jaw clenched. "It burned. It bled. It fell." He paused. "But we never saw a fucking body." K-Doll looked down at her scorched fingers. "We ain't never gonna find one. That thing ain't from here. It don't leave behind nothing but pain." He nodded slow. Pain. That's all they had now. By sunrise, they were moving again. Smoke loaded what was left into a busted wheelbarrow. 2 flare guns, 1 half-melted machete, and a fucking gas can with maybe a sip left. They weren't hunting now. They were cleaning up. They went block to block, making sure. No signs of life. No bodies they hadn't already counted. Just blood stains where people used to be. By noon, they reached the water tower. The one where the police chief had been hung like a deer, gutted and drained. Now it was painted black with soot, but the rope still hung. K-Doll spit on the ground. Place smelled like death and shame. Smoke didn't say nothing. He was watching the birds, because there weren't any. No crows, no buzzards, not even flies, just silence. A silence that ached. They made camp that night in the old high school gym. The bleachers were warped from rain, the walls covered in old graffiti tags from generations of nobodies. Smoke found a cot in the nurse's office, dragged it to center court, and posted up under the scoreboard. K-Doll lit 3 candles and set them in a triangle like Redbone used to. "Don't hurt," she said. "Maybe keep the spirits off our necks." He grunted, not much left to believe in. Later, as the candles flickered and the floor creaked like it remembered games long over, K-Doll said something soft. "Smoke, you think that thing was the only one?" He didn't answer, because he wasn't sure. He'd seen the way that meat womb inside the creature looked ready to birth something. He'd seen the way it adapted, healed, learned. That wasn't just a killer. That was an invasion. And this? This might have just been the scout. Around 3 a.m., Smoke woke up to static. Not from a TV this time. From the emergency radio he'd found in the nurse's desk. A single garbled voice came through. "Containment. Breach. Subject escaped. Repeat. Bent Horn compromised." Then static. He turned to K-Doll. She was already awake, already reaching for the machete. Smoke clicked the radio off, looked at the scoreboard. 0-0-0-0-0. Ball game was over, but the next one, it was already starting. At dawn, they returned to the junkyard. Smoke climbed the tower again. K-Doll went through the gear shed, patching together what was left of their fire rigs. She found a single red switch labeled Emergency Power. She flipped it. One floodlight blinked on, then another. The whole yard buzzed with life like the town wanted to survive. Smoke called down from the top. "We ain't done." K-Doll looked up. "Then let's make sure this time, when it comes again." He finished it for her. "We don't just burn it. We erase it